Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror comedy film, ARANMANAI. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a group of followers going to see a holy man named Holy. They meet a man on a tractor named Caretaker who has been taking care of a mansion, which he intends to buy. However, this is only possible if the landlord's daughter, Juliet, signs off on the contract. But she had gone missing years ago after eloping with her servant lover, Romeo, but she is said to be returning to the village soon. Caretaker and his men walk into the mansion and start some of their prep work. Meanwhile, Holy is met by his followers, and he tells them to prepare a procession for a goddess. However, as Caretaker and his men explore the mansion, they come across what looks like a termite hill. One of the men sticks a rod inside the termite hill, and it starts to bleed, thus alerting Holy, who backs away from his holy ceremony and says he'll come back later. Suddenly, a ghost hand makes its way outside the termite hill, suggesting an evil force awakening. At night, a chef and a driver have a discussion, but the power goes out and the chef hears some suspicious noises. He decides to go check it out, but hears the sounds of a woman crying. Suddenly, the chef gets attacked by a ghost lady and he runs away, crying like a weak chicken. He tries to make his way outside, but is seemingly trapped inside the mansion. The chef notices another person on the other side of the mansion and calls out to him for help, but realizes that it's a clone of himself. The clone is killed by the ghost lady in front of the chef, and he turns around only to meet the same fate. The next day, we see Romeo, Juliet, and their family at the train station. The family is here to facilitate the sale of the mansion, but Romeo loses his loincloth on the train, and it leads to an awkward conversation. Along with these family members is Juliet's niece, Babe, and Juliet's family is immediately smitten by her curvy looks. Romeo and Juliet get all kinds of weird ideas in their head because they want their son to marry Babe so that they can get their hands on a higher share of the mansion. Now we meet a married couple consisting of Juliet's nephew named Hubby and his wife, Wifey. They find a psychic girl who is seen talking to a person who's not there. As Babe combs her smelly hair, she drops the comb and bends her curvy body down to pick it up, but her reflection remains in the mirror, looking at her with evil and nasty eyes. However, Babe gets distracted when Wifey comes to see her for some greetings. Meanwhile, Juliet tries to sleep in bed and is given company by someone she assumes to be her lover Romeo. However, she hears someone in the bathroom and starts to panic, thinking there's a ghost inside. It turns out that it's actually Romeo who's inside the bathroom and there's nobody next to Juliet in bed. Later at night, Wifey has a nightmare where she sees a ghost lady next to Hubby. She wakes up and rushes to Hubby to see if he's alright, but notices some blood next to him that vanishes into thin air, with only diabetics left. The next day, the mansion's new chef, named Joker, enters the residence with his assistants, but they get distracted by Babe, who's exercising her curvy body. Joker and his men get spotted by Babe, who assumes that they're peeping on her. She eventually grabs Joker and calls for help, but he's just happy that she's holding onto his body. Joker's assistants decide to switch positions with him, but then Juliet and the others arrive at the scene. Joker explains that he's the new chef, and it clears the prevailing confusion. Psychic Girl stares at Joker with a crazy daze, and then the water pipe suddenly bursts. Now Joker prepares a trial meal for Romeo, but a ghost toy appears and scares Romeo down the stairs, leading to an injury. Meanwhile, Babe steps on a puddle of water and becomes curious, so she checks out a closet nearby. It ends up pouring water all over Babe, making her body dirty and causing her to let out a goot scream. The others rush to the scene and learn that the leaking pipe has caused this mess. The house documents are also destroyed in the process, so Hubby has to go to town to sort them out with Caretaker. Wifey doesn't want him to leave and hugs Hubby out of fear. Hubby comforts her using his words first and muscles later. At night, Romeo styles his mustache for a romantic session with Juliet. Then, we see Joker talking to his assistant, where he reveals that he's only acting as a chef to secure entry into the mansion. This is so that he can get his hands on some photographs at the mansion, which will seemingly prove his ancestral connection to the landlords, thus guaranteeing him a stake in the mansion money. Now, a home worker spots Psychic Girl playing a board game all alone, but she says she's with her sister, Sylvie. She proves it by summoning a ghost hand, and it scares the worker, so he runs his farting butt away in fear. But his annoying farting noise interrupts Romeo, who's in the middle of some hormone yoga with Juliet. Since he gets exposed, Romeo is beaten down by the others. Later, a creepy boy harasses one of the girls, but gets jump scared by Psychic Girl, who mentions Sylvie once again. The creepy boy doesn't think much about it, so he goes off looking for his victim, but runs into some ghost footprints instead. He slowly follows the footprints hoping to get lucky, but eventually finds the ghost lady, who attacks from behind and pushes him into the mirror. The next day, Juliet and her family go to attend a holy festival, and they engage in some holy celebrations. There, a beardy man named Beardy spots the beardless babe and wants to grab her attention, so he flexes his charming beard and throws a flower at her. However, it ends up on Juliet, so she mistakes Beardy's intentions. Babe also gets a flower thrown at her, so she feels creeped out. But then, Romeo pops up to stop Beardy in the middle of his flower games. Romeo mistakes Beardy to be going after the beardless Juliet, so he confronts him out of his hormone jealousy, but gets smacked in his smelly part. Juliet, Wifey, and Babe run away from Beardy and ask Romeo for help, but he's shown to be useless. Suddenly, some bullies arrive and threaten the girls, but then Beardy shows off his impressive fighting style by beating up all the bullies. Juliet figures this is just like an action movie, so she also gives a demonstration to Romeo in the middle of Beardy's muscle flexing. After the thrashing, we learn that Beardy is actually a lawyer and also Wifey's brother. The family brings Beardy to the mansion, but Joker feels insecure because he thinks Beardy is here to take over his share of the mansion. Later, Wifey talks to her brother Beardy about seeing ghosts in the house and adds on to her insecurities by mentioning that she can't have kids of her own due to an earlier accident. Beardy reassures his sister that he'll always be there for her, but then Wifey notices a ghost behind him. She panics, so Beardy turns around, but sees nothing and wonders what's going on. Now, a detective arrives at the mansion and is looking for Beardy because he believes him to be a criminal, possibly because of his iconic beard. Babe tries to vouch for Beardy, but Joker quickly brings him to Detective. However, it turns out that Beardy and Detective are good buddies, and Detective was just fooling around. Sensing that Joker might be an enemy, Beardy confronts him and finally learns about him being a legitimate heir to the mansion. Later, Beardy sets up some CCTV cameras to reassure Babe and Wifey that there aren't any ghosts in the mansion. Babe spots a ghost in the camera and gets scared, but Beardy doesn't spot anyone yet again. After this, Beardy sees Psychic Girl talking to the walls and decides to speak to her. It turns out that Psychic Girl is trying to kill another victim through Selvi, who has been the ghost lady all along. Luckily, Beardy shows up with his messy beard and asks the beardless Psychic Girl who she keeps talking to, but she shows him the messy drawing of Selvi. At night, Beardy notices something suspicious in his cameras and also sees a fortune teller running his telling mouth away after seeing something. He inspects the scene and notices a possessed woman, so he follows after her, but gets jump scared when he sees a ghost face in the windows. The next day, Beardy is called to the beach, where he sees Selvi's victims dead in the water. Beardy wants to investigate what's going on, so he finds and questions fortune teller. He learns that fortune teller got scared when he saw Selvi killing one of the victims through a possessed body, which was why he ran away. Beardy is given a holy egg to identify who's been possessed by Selvi. He comes back home, where the cops have begun their questioning. Beardy places the holy egg on the desk, and it suddenly starts to shake when Wifey shows up for questioning. The egg spirals out of control and falls to the ground, spilling diabetic blood instead of yolk. That's when we learn that Selvi has indeed possessed Wifey. Beardy needs some research on Selvi, and he finds an unlikely informant in a girl who was Selvi's close friend. A flashback shows Selvi messing around with Hubby as he had visited this village before. She throws a stone in Hubby's face, but feels guilty, so she goes to help him out. However, she learns that Hubby is going to use the stone as evidence to catch the culprit and land them in jail. Feeling worried, Selvi goes to the mansion at night and pays Joker to retrieve the stone from Hubby. However, she ends up stopping Joker from stealing extra items from the mansion. This leads to some chaos, and the noise alerts the others inside. Selvi tries to make a run for it and bumps into Hubby. She finally reveals that she'd thrown the stone, so Hubby helps her escape while he distracts the others. The next day, Hubby attends a holy ceremony and finds Selvi being worshipped because her body is the host for the same goddess that Holy had mentioned at the beginning of the movie. Hubby falls in love with Selvi and tells her that he wants to marry her, so he's going to wait for her to come join him on his way back home. Selvi is hesitant because she feels that her bond with the goddess will get in her way, but her friend motivates her to go for it. This was the last time the friend saw Selvi, and then she pleads with Beardy to help her find Selvi. Back at the mansion, Joker tries to flirt with Babe by saying he's not scared of ghosts. The possessed wifey listens in on this conversation, so she decides to teach Joker a lesson. Inside a dusty old room, Joker spots a naked belly button and gets excited, thinking that it's Babe. But this actually turns out to be Wifey, who turns into Selvi and slaps his Joker face multiple times. Later, Joker is found in a beaten-down state by his assistant, who is also given the beating of a lifetime when Selvi appears again. Selvi erases the memories of both Joker and his assistant, so the two men run their joking act away in fear. Now, the possessed wifey spots Selvi's friend, who has been brought to the mansion by Beardy as part of his plan to expose her. This triggers Selvi, who grabs her friend and tells her everything. We're taken to a flashback where Selvi reveals that she couldn't meet hubby because she was taken to investigate the goddess's jewelry, which had been stolen and replaced by fakes. Selvi immediately identifies Caretaker to be the culprit, so she confronts him for being a thief. However, she gets slashed in the head by the creepy boy and is kicked down the hills. Selvi still manages to survive the attack and runs back to the mansion. She locates the same chef we saw earlier in the movie and asks for help, but he's also in cahoots with Caretaker and stabs Selvi. After that, Caretaker and his men arrive and trick hubby into thinking that Selvi won't come for him, so they send him away, while Selvi is kept hostage with her mouth shut. She's unable to get hubby's attention because Caretaker and his men knock her down before she can release her goose scream. Selvi begs for mercy and says she wants to live happily with hubby, despite being a vessel for the goddess. Unfortunately, Caretaker and his men beat her up without hormone mercy and bury her alive. Back to the present, Selvi tells her friend that she's going to remain in wifey's body so that she can finally be with hubby once and for all. She also says that she's going to mate with hubby tonight so that her soul can become one with wifey's body. Beardy hears this entire conversation, so he quickly sets a trap that injures hubby. He then takes hubby to the hospital, but wifey also follows them there. Beardy connects the dots when wifey goes missing and realizes that Selvi is gone to kill Caretaker. His guess is right, as the possessed wifey finds Caretaker soon and tricks him into letting her inside his car. That's when Selvi takes over and starts beating up Caretaker without mercy. She taunts Caretaker about what he did to her and is about to kill him, but she throws him into a temple by mistake and isn't able to reach him there. This gives Caretaker some breathing space, so Selvi goes to get hubby back home instead. Meanwhile, Beardy learns from Fortune Teller that Holy is the only one who can save wifey from Selvi's possession. Beardy takes a holy egg and gives it to his family so that they can see Selvi in wifey's body when she and hubby come back home. Now that the family believes him, Beardy explains that they must stop Selvi and hubby from completing their hormone yoga tonight, otherwise she will permanently get trapped inside wifey's body. He also adds that Selvi might end up killing hubby if he doesn't cure her. Juliet and Babe bring some tea to hubby when Selvi is trying to seduce him using wifey's body. However, Selvi scares them into dropping the tea and dirtying her clothes. Selvi changes into a towel and is about to reveal it all, but then Joker fakes a heart attack so that hubby can take him to the hospital. However, Selvi shows up again and scares Joker, so he claims that it was a simple case of gas. Now, Beardy meets Holy and asks for his holy help, but Holy says that the only way to stop Selvi is to put her into the river, which will be blessed by some sages in the morning. Selvi finally gets to perform the mating ritual with hubby, but at the same time, some cops take Caretaker away from the temple. Selvi learns this and rushes towards Caretaker after putting hubby in a trance. Caretaker wakes up inside the cop van and panics because he wants to go back to the temple. He causes the van to crash, and then Selvi shows up to take her revenge. Caretaker is beaten down and thrashed just like Selvi was, and then she kills him in cold blood. Meanwhile, Holy and Beardy rush to hubby and cure him with holy intervention to break the trance. Selvi also returns and announces her arrival by shaking the entire mansion. She then confronts Holy and Beardy for keeping her away from hubby. Selvi is too powerful for the men to defeat, but Holy manages to use his holy powers to keep her at bay. In an effort to distract Beardy, Selvi tries stabbing wifey's body, but Holy stops her with his holy fire. Beardy drives hubby to the river, and a tense sequence follows as Selvi tries to use her powers to stop the annoying two men. Holy keeps her restrained using his holy powers, but his flames eventually die out, and Selvi knocks him down, after which she confronts the two on a bridge. Beardy acts fast and drives the car into the river, but Selvi follows them and starts drowning hubby. Now, Beardy tries to awaken the possessed wifey by mentioning something he learned earlier from the doctors. It turns out that wifey is pregnant despite what she mentioned earlier about the accident. This gives wifey control of her own body long enough for her shitty husband to escape, but Selvi reawakens and chases him. Luckily, the sages manage to bless the river just as Beardy drags the beardless Selvi back into the water, causing her soul to be expelled from wifey's body, finally ending the horror drama. The movie ends with Beardy and the family posing for a picture, but the background shows Selvi's ghost still lurking around the mansion. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.